হিন্দুদের নিয়ে, হিন্দুদের জন্য, হিন্দু লাইফস ম্যাটার নিয়মিত ভিডিও পেতে চ্যানেলটি সাবস্ক্রাইব করুন এবং পাশের বেল আইকনটি প্রেস করুন।
নমস্কার সুপ্রিয় দর্শক শ্রোতা, আপনারা যারা দেশের এবং বিশ্বের বিভিন্ন প্রান্ত থেকে আমাদের এই আজকের শোটি দেখছেন, তাদেরকে এই চ্যানেলে স্বাগতম জানাচ্ছি। আপনারা জানেন যে আমাদের বাংলাদেশে এবং ভারতে হিন্দুরা, ইভেন দো ভারত একটি হিন্দু সংখ্যাগরিষ্ঠ দেশ, সেইখানেও হিন্দুরা নির্যাতিত হচ্ছে এবং সারা বিশ্বে হিন্দুদের বিরুদ্ধে একটি আন্তর্জাতিক ষড়যন্ত্র কাজ করতেছে। সেই ষড়যন্ত্রের কথাগুলি নিয়ে আমরা আজকে আলোচনা করব। সেই ষড়যন্ত্রের তত্ত্বগুলি আমরা ডিসম্যান্টল করব। এবং এইখানে আপনারা হয়তো শুনেছেন যে সেপ্টেম্বরের 10 এবং 11-12 এই 3 দিন ব্যাপী আমেরিকার বিভিন্ন বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়ের লিবারেল তথাকথিত, আমি বলবো যে মৌলবাদী এই শিক্ষাবিদরা, প্রফেসররা, তাদের বেশ কয়েকটি ইউনিভার্সিটির সমন্বয়ে একটি হিন্দুত্ব বিরোধী একটি কনফারেন্সের আয়োজন করেছে। আমরা খুবই মর্মাহত, খুবই ক্ষুব্ধ এই কনফারেন্সের ব্যাপারে, এবং এই জন্যই বিশেষত আমরা আজকের এই কথাগুলি এইখানে আলোচনা করতে যাচ্ছি। আমাদের সাথে আজকের এই আলোচনাটি মূলত ইংরেজিতে হবে এবং সাথে আমরা হয়তো বাংলাও কিছু বলবো আমাদের বাংলা ভিউয়ার্সদের জন্য। সো let us introduce to you our guest, Nikunj Trivedi. He is the president of Coalition of Hindus of North America, Coalition of Hindus of North America, and Miss Sohini Sircar. She is the vice chair of Hindu Students Council, and joining us also Ripon from Dhaka. He is the international coordinator of Hindu Mahajot. So we welcome you all. And as I said, there is a global conspiracy against Hindus, and there is a Hinduphobia spreading like a wildfire everywhere. There are people who are, sounding alarms at Hindutva. But what I know as Hindutva, and you all know, Hindutva is peace upon earth. That's what we say. Hindutva, we just don't say that my name is peace. Hindutva says Om Shanti, Antariksha Shanti. We pray, we just don't say my name is peace. We say peace be unto you. So I would like to call on Nikunj Trivedi. Trivedi ji, apni please explain us what is Hindutva.
So thank you very much, first of all, for having me on this channel. It's wonderful to have be with all of you. There has been a lot of confusion about native terms versus terms that are used from the Western perspective. As many of you are aware, the word Hinduism is not native. It was actually coined during the British time frame by the colonizers who came from the Western world, came to India, and decided to call a real diversity of traditions within the dharmic world as Hinduism. So the idea of the word Hinduism itself is a misnomer for the traditions that we are. Many people have described Hindu dharma or Hindutva in many different ways. So the word Hindutva itself is a sandhi. It's a combination of two words, Hindu and Tattva, which essentially from an indigenous perspective really means that the essence of who we are as people, as Hindus, as Sanatanis, as the followers of dharmic traditions. So the word itself is of a native origin. It's a Sanskrit word that is of native origin. How it's used by different people is obviously there. But naturally speaking, in the Western world, it has been associated with some kind of a political ideology, which is not the native understanding of the Hindu tradition. In fact, to give you a small example, in the Bharat Seva Srama Sangha, which is a Bengali organization, so I want to bring that out. There's a book called Om Hindutvam. It's a collection by the Swamis who founded the Bharat Seva Srama Sangha, about mantras, chantings, pujas, things like that. So the fact that a very renowned sect of Hindu Dharma actually uses the word Hindutvam, Om Hindutvam, for its text is testament. And this is a very small example. There are many examples, and I'm certainly not an expert, but I just wanted to share, since you asked me the question, what is Hindutva? It's essentially the essence of being a Hindu. It's the way it's used in today's terminology and stuff like that is a complete misappropriation of the word itself, and it's given a very very anti-Hindu meaning in a way. That is something that is out to destroy minorities and things like that. But if we look at what the native perspective is, it's very different than what the Western perspective is.
Okay, but that what they are saying, sometimes we see that that Hindutva is a dangerous phenomenon, but we don't bomb anybody, we don't slit anybody's throat, we never call for violence, we always call for peace. So as I'm going to show you a slide, that there is a conference going on. It's turned Dismantling Global Hindutva. So, and they laid out a lot of nonsense over there. So could you please highlight a little bit of that, and then Ms. Sohini and Ripon, they can pick up on that, please.
Yes, absolutely. So the idea of using the word Hindutva is to silence Hindus. They are trying to create this monster that somehow Hindutva is, more dangerous than Nazis and this and that, and show that it needs to be dismantled. So if you look at the conference, the idea is to dismantle something that is very evil, something that is very dangerous. And they're doing it on the 20th anniversary of 9/11, which was one of the worst attacks on American soil and then had a global consequence. It's trying to equate Hindu groups with Al-Qaeda, Taliban, things like that, as if Hindu groups are as dangerous and Hindutva needs to be dismantled. If you look at the imagery of the conference, right, Hindu figures are being plucked out with a hammer out of their roots. There's roots in the bottom also, and essentially removed. Okay, so the imagery itself is very, very Hindu-phobic. If you look at the speakers who are speaking, they are known supporters of Naxalites, of Maoists, of very dangerous political movements, people who are very deeply connected to the communist movement in India and have openly glorified the Naxalite movements, which actually is designated as a terrorist organization and a terrorist group by the State Department, by the US State Department. The Naxalites and the Maoists are considered terror groups. So the fact that you have people who are openly supporting and glorifying terror groups that are billed as academics, they are being considered as academics, completely false. Others who are conference speakers have called characters in the Ramayana as monkeys, humans as monkeys. The Ramayana is a racist piece of literature based on colonial understandings. They have called for dismantling of Hinduism itself. This whole idea that Hinduism has oppressive practices and it needs to be dismantled. They're just using Hindutva as a cover, but the real dismantling is really calling for Hinduism's dismantling. And it's very clear. If you go to our website, we have provided information on why there's a problem. So the speakers who are coming, the academics who are supporting some of them, they've had a history of anti-Hindu comments, of very, very biased views, and have openly called for dismantling of Hinduism. Not dismantling of Hindutva, but really dismantling of Hinduism. So bottom line is this idea of dismantling global Hindutva is really a cover and a trope that is where the underlying is really to dismantle the Hindu narrative and Hinduism itself.
Okay, Ms. Sohini, you want to add on to this introduction?
Sure. Thank you so much for having us on today. I definitely want to share a little bit about what's going on with Hindu students at universities and at high schools and middle schools, elementary schools across North America, is that we really do feel the brunt of what's going on in this larger stage. And we've been feeling this for a long time, even, since I was in elementary school. We see that there is constantly a misrepresentation of how Hindu Dharma is portrayed, even in children's textbooks. So we see this Hindu phobia getting built into the children's mindset from a young age. And then as these children grow, they don't have pride for being Hindu, and they actually, sometimes try to hide their Hindu identity. And now when we move into this larger stage where these kinds of conferences are going on, a lot of these students that have grown up really being disappointed in, being called Hindu, they start, sometimes, getting bullied in schools. Some of them, try to disassociate from that identity completely because they're so ashamed about that identity of theirs. And it really plays a big role in how, they act and try to lead their lives and, the way they want to raise their children. So this Hindu phobia that is happening in, globally really does impact students and, how they choose to carry themselves, their self-confidence. It really makes a big deal in, even college students. A lot of them we see will join Indian Students Association or Bangladeshi Students Association, but they don't want to join a Hindu group because they feel like joining a Hindu group will somehow label them in a negative way. It's, not cool. They're going to be weird or, and so I think this is becoming a major problem. And those of us who are very proud to be Hindu, we sometimes get labeled, by our own family members, by our friends as, oh, you must be a Hindutva, like you must be an extremist, you must love Modi. They don't even ask about, what are your political ideologies? We're American. We grew up in America. And yet we're getting associated with Indian political parties that we actually may not know anything about. Yeah. And so this is really, impacting the way we live our lives. Even wearing a bindi can sometimes become a problem when, we have our own friends or family trying to label us in a way just because we're proud of our identity and, who we are.
You see, what Nikunj was saying, the imagery, I cannot show you the screen, but look at this. You see, there is a Hindu man standing and they are plucking it like a nail with a hammer. You see, this is what in their website, and this is so scary. And it definitely, they are evoking the, fear about Hindus, that Hindus are so dangerous that they need to be plucked out from the society. So Ripon, please, say something about this.
Thank you, Pradip and all the speakers here. And, in Bangladesh, in the perspective of Bangladesh, we are striving here after liberation of Bangladesh and every day pursue getting our community peoples and our properties. And we are fighting to establish our rights. We are trying to unify our people. By this time, when we come to know that an international conference is going to be held, titled Dismantling Global Hinduism, it's not only a issue, it's a burning issue, because Hindus are the very much peaceful nation over the world. Before our footstep, while we wake up from the bed, first of all, we say, please pardon Abashumati. That means we are basically the peace seeker, peace lover community. In such this time, while world is thinking how peace been established among the world by the name of humanity, in this way, they are not getting any issues to discuss. Look the Middle East or what happened over the world, and world is struggling to being normalized from the COVID situation. At this moment, I think it's a great conspiracy against Hindutva. I just want to add something also, because in this most of our audience of this channel are basically used to listen in Bengali, and already Trivedi ji explained about Hindutva in English. I want to add something, if you allow me to. I start with Bengali. Pradip da.
Okay, go ahead. Sure.
Okay.
Go ahead.
আমি প্রথমে ধন্যবাদ দিতে চাই, এরকম একটি বার্নিং ইস্যু নিয়ে প্রদীপ দা আজকের এই টকশোটি আয়োজন করেছেন, এবং এখানে আমাদের দুইজন ডিস্টিংগুইশড গেস্ট রয়েছেন। তার ভিতরে যিনি কিনোট স্পিকার হিসেবে রয়েছেন ত্রিবেদী জি, অত্যন্ত লার্নেড পারসন। আমি বাংলাদেশী হিন্দুদের পক্ষ থেকে আমি তাকে অভিনন্দন জানাতে চাই। সেই সঙ্গে একজন ইয়থ আইকন রয়েছেন, যিনি আমেরিকার স্টুডেন্ট কাউন্সিলের ভাইস চেয়ার সোহিনী জি। আমি তাকে বাংলাদেশে হিন্দুদের পক্ষ থেকে এবং বাংলাদেশের ইয়থ গ্রুপের পক্ষ থেকে আমি অভিনন্দন জানাতে চাই। কিন্তু একটি দুঃসময়ে আমরা আজকে কথা বলতে এসেছি এমন একটি ইস্যু নিয়ে, যেটি নিয়ে কথা বলতে সত্যি আমরা যথেষ্ট বিব্রত বোধ করছি। আসলে যারা এই কনফারেন্সটি আয়োজন করেছে আমেরিকাতে, ডিসম্যান্টলিং গ্লোবাল হিন্দুত্ববা নামে, তারা আসলে হিন্দুত্ব সম্পর্কে তাদের আইডিয়া হচ্ছে জিরো। কারণ তারা কিছুই জানে না, হিন্দুত্ব সম্পর্কে তাদের কোনো আইডিয়া নেই। এটা হচ্ছে একটি বাম ইসলামিক ষড়যন্ত্রের আন্তর্জাতিক ষড়যন্ত্রের একটি রূপ তারা দিতে চাচ্ছিল। সেটি আমার বিশ্বাস যে হচ্ছে যেভাবে সারা বিশ্ব থেকে আমাদের কমিউনিটির লোকজন এটার এগেইনস্টে ভয়েস রেজ করছেন, তাতে এটি ব্যর্থতায় পর্যবসিত হবে। আপনারা ইতিমধ্যেই দেখতে পেয়েছেন তাদের ওয়েবসাইটটি সরিয়ে নেওয়া হয়েছে, তাদের যে কন্টেন্ট ছিল সেটি এখন আর নেই। আমরা যদি যেটি হচ্ছেন মিস্টার ত্রিবেদী যেটি বলেছেন যে হিন্দুত্ব সম্পর্কে কি, যেটি প্রথম প্রশ্ন রেখেছিলেন আমাদের প্রদীপ দা, সেটি যদি জানতে হয়, এই হিন্দুত্ব শব্দটি সর্বপ্রথম বঙ্কিমচন্দ্র চট্টোপাধ্যায় অষ্টাদশ শতকের অর্থাৎ 1800 শতকের শেষের দিকে উনি এই শব্দটি প্রথম বাংলায় ব্যবহার করেন। পরবর্তী এই হিন্দুত্ব শব্দটি ব্যাখ্যা দেন হচ্ছেন আপনার 1923 সালে হিন্দুত্ব নামে আপনার হচ্ছে বিনায়ক সভারকর জি, যিনি রয়েছেন বিনায়ক সভারকর, দামোদর সভারকর জি, উনি জেলখানায় বসে, আন্দাবর নিকোবরের জেলখানায় বসে হিন্দুত্ব নামে একটি বই লেখেন, যে বইয়ে তিনি হচ্ছে এই হিন্দুত্বের ব্যাখ্যা দিয়েছেন যে হোয়াট ইজ হিন্দুনেস। উনি একটি সংস্কৃত স্তূকের মাধ্যমে এই হিন্দুত্বের সংজ্ঞাটি দিয়েছেন এরকম যে আশিন্দু সিন্ধু পর্যন্ত যস্য ভারত ভূমিকা পিতৃভূ পুণ্য ভূষ্যব স ওই হিন্দু রীতিশ্রিত। অর্থাৎ এই হিন্দুত্বের ডেফিনেশনটা উনি বলেছিলেন যে দক্ষিণে সিন্ধু নদ থেকে উত্তরে সিন্ধু নদ থেকে দক্ষিণে সিন্ধু সাগর পর্যন্ত বিস্তৃত যে সিন্ধু অববাহিকা রয়েছে, যেটি ভারত নামে পরিচিত, এখানে বসবাসরত মানুষের যে হচ্ছে জীবনযাপন, তাদের সংস্কৃতি, কৃষ্টি, এই সবকিছু মিলেই হচ্ছে হিন্দুত্ব। হিন্দুত্ব কোনো বিশেষ কোনো ধর্ম বা গোষ্ঠীকে হচ্ছে আপনার রিপ্রেজেন্ট করে না, এটি একটি জাতি গোষ্ঠী এবং তার সংস্কৃতিকে হচ্ছে আপনার রিপ্রেজেন্ট করে, যেটা উনি স্পষ্ট করেছেন। তো সেই ক্ষেত্রে এই ভূমির মধ্যবর্তী স্থানে অবস্থিত যারা হিন্দু, বৌদ্ধ, জৈন, পার্সি যারাই রয়েছেন এবং খ্রিস্টান, মুসলিম, তারাও হিন্দু হিসেবে বা হিন্দুত্ব ধারণ করতে পারবে, হিন্দু হিসেবে বিবেচিত হবে। তো এই জায়গাটা কিন্তু হচ্ছে এই ডেফিনেশনটা যদি কেউ জানে, তাহলে তার এই হিন্দুত্ব নিয়ে কিন্তু আর প্রশ্ন করার কোনো সুযোগ থাকবে না, কোনো সুযোগ নেই। তো যারা এই হিন্দুত্বের বিরুদ্ধে আজকে স্লোগান দিয়েছে, হিন্দুত্বকে উপড়ে ফেলার জন্য হচ্ছে সেমিনার করছে, তাদের হিন্দুত্ব সম্পর্কে আইডিয়া হচ্ছে জিরো, এটি আমি বলতে চাই। ধন্যবাদ প্রদীপ দা, পরে সুযোগ পেলে আমি আরো অ্যাড করব।
ওকে, থ্যাংক ইউ রিপন দে। Nikunj, your organization, Coalition of Hindus of North America, sent 350,000 emails, 350,000 emails to various sectors against this, and it is working, looks like, and there are a lot of universities have disassociated themselves from this conference and disavowed it and condemned it in some ways. So in this, so I would like you to ask you how, I mean, what actually their purpose, what they want to achieve with this. They are not talking about I don't remember them organizing a conference against ISIS or against Taliban or against the communists or things like that, or those that are destroying lives, but they went against a peaceful community like Hindus. So, please tell us a little bit more in details about this.
Yes, absolutely. So just to add to Ripunji's message about the Hindutva, Chandranath Basu was the first one to coin the word Hindutva. In his Hindutva Prakar, which is 1892, Hindu Prakrita Itihas, which was an Advaita Vedanta philosophical work. That was the first time, and his work was then spotted by Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay and looked at, and then with the word Hindutva came about. So there's a lot of history there. So I just wanted to share that too. Now let's go back to your point. First of all, there are over 1 million emails. So 10 lakh emails have been sent between all the Hindu organizations, not just Cohna, but all the Hindu organizations. Some universities have asked these organizers to remove the logos. So if you see initially, they had all the logos in the first version of the website. Then all the Hindu organizations and Hindus complained, parents, students, alumni. So they removed all the logos. And then now they have added a few departments. So what is happening is that there is a systematic Hindu phobia within various departments in South Asian studies, Indology, things like that, that supports these types of characters, okay, to paint a very grave picture about Hinduism. That Hinduism is caste, cows, curry, and chaos. This is how Hinduism is portrayed by various South Asian departments. And if you challenge that, you are considered Hindu nationalist, Hindu supremacist, things like that. So their objective is to normalize hatred against Hindus. And by targeting us in this institutional format, they want to equate us as Hindus, same as the largest terrorist organizations out there like Al-Qaeda, Taliban, etc. In fact, one of the keynote speakers, Meena Kandasamy, actually said that if you want to understand the RSS, just look at what's going on in Afghanistan and look at Taliban. Okay, that is a very dangerous comparison because most people in America don't understand difference between Hinduism, Hindutva. They first of all don't understand Hinduism. So there is no difference between Hinduism and Hindutva. It's kind of the same thing, but two different words. One is a native term, one is a Western term. But more importantly, equating any Hindu organization with ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Taliban is extremely dangerous. And it creates problems for Hindus in America and Hindus globally. So that's what they're trying to do, to normalize and whitewash the real issue, okay, of radicalism and terrorism by picking the date of September 11th, 2021, 20th anniversary of the worst attack on American soil. They're trying to normalize that, hey, it's all the same. These Hindu supremacists are exactly the same as this Taliban and Al-Qaeda and things like that. So it's a very dangerous precedent that they're trying to set by normalizing this and by normalizing Hindu hatred. And that's what's really happening to us as far as this conference is concerned. If you look at the statements made by the people who are speaking, it's extremely clear that the real target is Hinduism. But this is a pattern, just so you know. Most people are surprised that this is happening. But this is a pattern for the past 30, 40 plus years, okay? If you remember, Pradipji, Wendy Doniger, Sheldon Pollock, all these old school people, Paul Courtwright, they talk about Hinduism as if it's the worst religion in the world. This whole idea of that all gods rape in Hinduism, that everyone is like raping each other. They all have sexual relationships, mother and son, like Ganesha and Parvati. Very, very nasty stuff, right? Sri Ram, it was like this. All the things that you see that are going on, this is all a pattern to essentially demonize Hinduism and therefore people who are followers of Hinduism. Now, beyond that, what is happening is that there are policies that are being passed in the US. For example, they're looking to pass these caste policies, okay, to show how that Hindus are the worst people in the world and they discriminate based on caste. The target is only Hinduism. And in California, that's where things are starting to come about. Recently, the Democratic Party in California passed a resolution or a policy that says that they will also have they will end caste discrimination, or they're against caste discrimination. But the target here is not any other religion. Islam has castes, Christians have castes, Sikhs have castes. The whole idea of caste is not just a Hindu thing, but yet it's always targeted towards Hinduism. And that's what really it's going on here.
And the sad thing is, vast majority of these academics that are organizing this conference are from India and people of Indian diaspora. How do you square with that?
So it's always been. I mean, the word, even you can look at them as sepoys essentially. That when you look at the British, right, they only had 1 lakh soldiers and 1 lakh people ruling entire Greater India of 300 million people. So similarly, the way they did it is they used sepoys and people who would do their work. So a lot of the people who we consider of Indian origin, I don't consider them Indian at all because they look brown, but they demonize their own culture and religion. And anybody who speaks up against them, they demonize them as Hindu nationalists. So if you challenge them on their facts, they will say, oh, you are a Hindu supremacist, I don't want to talk to you. Right? That's a very classic view, but they will never fight back with any facts. So this is, even though they're considered diaspora or Indian origin, I do not consider them, they're very hostile to their own culture. They're essentially self-hating and hostile to their own culture.
Ms. Sohini, you highlighted the issue how the students on campuses are being marginalized, being denigrated. So if the professors act like that, and we see, like except in Islamist countries, the campuses are so liberal. They are, and they are not liberal against the Islam. They are not talking against the real stuff going on, but they pick a peaceful community, Hindus, and they make mockery of Hindu religion, like Nikunj mentioned. They say things and they propagate things that are not true. How your organization is trying to fight back on this issue?
Sure. Yeah, so with Hindu Students Council, I think the power here is that we have students that are, throughout lots of different universities that can come together and discuss, what are the issues that they're facing on campus with, different professors that are teaching Hindu Dharma in a biased way. And then when we come together as a collective, we can, come up with social media posts that highlight, what are the different issues that the students are facing. We can come up with responses to the universities. We can write press statements to the public. So it's once we come together as all the Hindu students across North America, when we come together, we can kind of bring that power and that strength together to be able to combat these professors, because it's really difficult for one student alone to be able to, stand up to one professor. They could say a comment in class, but in order to try to remove that professor's power or influence, that takes a lot more unity. So I think that's one thing we try to work on as Hindu Students Council. One example that we have going on right now is at Rutgers University. We have a professor who is very openly anti-Hindu, who is teaching about Hindu Dharma to students. And a lot of the students that take her class, are non-Hindu, so they just believe everything she's saying. And then there are some Hindu students who sometimes end up leaving her class confused. And when they try to speak up, but it's something that, the university has allowed to continue. She's allowed to continue teaching about Hindu Dharma. And I mean, we recently saw that in her class, the way she teaches Hindu Dharma has left some of the students to say things to the effect of, oh my gosh, I can't believe people from Hindus are allowed to enter the US. You can imagine how, that impacts all Hindus in the US, right? When people are starting to believe that, Hindus shouldn't even be allowed in other countries. It's a very, as many of you have said, it's a very peaceful, way of living. There is, nothing in any of our texts that, try to discuss people of other faiths. We don't make any commentary about people of other faiths, of how they should be treated. And yet here we are, a very peaceful, way of living is getting targeted. And so I think from Hindu Students Council's standpoint, we try to do our best to bring that unity, bring that support to Hindu students, to make sure that if they're ever in a situation in a classroom or in their school where a student or their teachers or the administration is targeting them, that we can stand up and point it out and say, this is Hinduphobia. This is not okay. We have so much out there about, anti-Semitism is not okay. How Islamophobia, people say Hindu, made up concept. People have experienced Hinduphobia, and it is real. And to help that for that Hindu is real, feeling is valid, and that we can.
I think she's getting cut off.
I think, you're cutting up anyway.
So I think what she was trying to say is, we are providing support on campuses for students who are facing this. If this will happen to any other religion, so let's say, for example, someone talked about like this about Islam or Judaism and things like that, they will be accused of Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, things like that, and they will be given a platform. But Hindus, when they talk about Hindu phobia, that is considered a fake word. When students say we are facing Hindu phobia and anti-Hindu sentiment, they are considered, Hindu supremacists are talking here, right? Even students who are born like, so that is a very that's where the bias comes in. When you look at other religions, how they're treated, specifically Islam, Christianity, and even Sikh dharma, right? Versus if you look at Hindu dharma, it's very differently given the platform. We are automatically considered oppressors. We're automatically considered people who are privileged, while the other traditions are given a due sort of process and a due voice. So I think that's what some of the things that Sohini was trying to say.
Okay, the Facebook and social media is littered with Hindu-phobic comments, and there are some people, they act like they are scholars and Vedas, and they misinterpret things and put things. They make up stuff looks and to demonize Hinduism. One of the organizers I read that the COVID victims were hastily disposed in Ganges because the Hindu Brahmins were charging exorbitant amount of money, to do the funeral rites. This is how nonsense is that. This is what they are peddling in the in the social media, and especially in Bangladesh, in media, they are all the Muslims, I would say, and even the one guy, a Dhaka University law professor, and he is self-proclaimed Hindu. No, he is a self-proclaimed human rights activist, and he said that even uttered that Bhagavan was matal, Bhagavan was intoxicated by alcohol, with alcohol. So those things, they are saying that Hinduism is so bad and it is not in Vedas. This thing is not Vedas. So they are praying the false stuff. They should follow the Vedas and embrace Islam. This is what kind of propaganda they are doing against Hindus. So I want Ripon to shed a light on this.
It was a great discussion. I think Trivedi ji well explained the situation. Just I want to add, who are the American organizer? Who hell are they to talk about Hindutva? Any Hindu guy or Indian originated, anybody make any aggression to America or any other country of the world?
But they
Hindus
are
Hindus are a threat for any nation. Yes,
most of them are Indians and Hindus.
We have to understand, those who are organizing, they are demanding, they are propagating, or they are trying to break down the unity of India. Their slogan, Tukre Tukre Gang. They are basically known in India as Tukre Tukre Gang. They want to make India divided in various parts. So, a big conspiracy happening against Hindutva and India and also this land also. So here we just want to mention in Bengali this one declaration from Indian Supreme Court, what is given in 1995. I'm reading in Bengali for our Bengali audience. 90 দশকের গোড়ার দিকে সুপ্রিম কোর্ট একটি রায় প্রদান করেছিল 1995 সালে, যেটাকে হিন্দুত্ব রায় বলা হয় ভারতে। সেই মামলার একজন প্রথিতযশা যিনি লয়ার, ওনার নাম হচ্ছে রাম জেঠমালানি। উনি সেই রায়ে, সুপ্রিম কোর্ট যে রায়টি দিয়েছিলেন সেখানে উনি বলেছেন, আদালত বলেছেন যে সাধারণভাবে হিন্দুত্বকে জীবনযাপন পদ্ধতি বা একটি মানসিক অবস্থান হিসাব ধরে নিতে হবে এবং ধর্মীয় হিন্দু মৌলবাদের সঙ্গে একে গুলিয়ে ফেলে হবে না। জেঠমালানির মতে সুপ্রিম কোর্ট এই শব্দটির সত্য অর্থ যথাযথভাবে ব্যাখ্যা করেছেন যে হিন্দুত্ব কোনো সংগঠিত ধর্মের সাথে বৈরিতা নয় বা অন্য কোনো ধর্মের উপর তার ধর্মের শ্রেষ্ঠত্ব ঘোষণা করে না। তার মতে এটি দুর্ভাগ্যজনক যে সাম্প্রদায়িক প্রচার যন্ত্র নিরলসভাবে একটি সাম্প্রদায়িক শব্দ হিসেবে হিন্দুত্বকে প্রচার করে এটি এমন একটি বিষয় যা রাজনীতিবিদ, মিডিয়া, নাগরিক সমাজ এবং বুদ্ধিজীবী সহ অপিনিয়ন লিডারদের মন এবং ভাষায় অন্তর্ভুক্ত হয়ে গিয়েছে। একটা নিষ্পত্তিকর বিষয়, কারণ এই হিন্দুত্ব নিয়ে কিন্তু ভারতের স্বাধীনতার পরে আপ টু টিল ডেট পর্যন্ত এটা নিয়ে প্রচুর তর্ক বিতর্ক হয়েছে, এবং এখানে যাদেরকে উপরে ফেলার তারা লোগো দিয়েছে, এই আপনার হচ্ছে আরএসএস কে কিন্তু হচ্ছে নেহেরু সরকার নিষিদ্ধ করেছিল এবং 2 লক্ষ আরএসএস এর কর্মীকে গ্রেপ্তার করেছিল গান্ধীজিকে হত্যার পর। পরবর্তীতে দেখছে যে মামলার রায়ে যে এটার সঙ্গে এই নথুরাম গডসে যে হচ্ছে হত্যা করেছেন মহাত্মা গান্ধীজিকে, এটার সঙ্গে আরএসএস এর কোনো সম্পৃক্ততা ছিল না। তারপর কিন্তু আবার সেই কর্মসূচি শুরু করে, এবং আপনারা জানবেন যে আরএসএস এর হচ্ছে মুসলিম উইংস রয়েছে, এবং তারা হচ্ছে স্বয়ংসেবকরা কি পরিমাণ কাজ তারা করে থাকে এটা কিন্তু ভারতে যারা বসবাস করে তারা জানে। এখন যারা এটার বিরুদ্ধে কথা বলছে, যে সমস্ত যেটা হচ্ছে আমার পূর্ববর্তী বক্তা ত্রিবেদীজি বলেছেন যে হচ্ছে নকশাল যে গ্রুপগুলা, এবং এটার সঙ্গে যে হচ্ছে আপনার উগ্র ইসলামিক যে গ্রুপ, তারা হচ্ছে সম্মিলিত হয়ে আপনারা দেখবেন যে এই কাজগুলি করছে। তাদের এই সিরিয়ার ব্যাপারে তাদের কোনো কথা নেই। ইয়েমানে যে শিশুদেরকে হত্যা করা হচ্ছে সেটার বিষয়ে কখনো তাদেরকে এরকম কনফারেন্স করতে দেখি না। ইভেন দো যারা এটা নিয়ে কথা বলছে আমেরিকাতে, আপনারা দেখেছেন যে গত নির্বাচনের পর ক্যাপিটাল হিলে যেভাবে নগ্ন হামলা করা হয়েছিল, সেটা নিয়ে তাদেরকে এত বড় কনফারেন্স করতে দেখা যায়নি। জর্জ ফ্লয়েডকে নিয়ে যখন হচ্ছে সমস্ত আমেরিকা উত্তাল ছিল, তখনও তাদেরকে এই ধরনের কোনো কনফারেন্স, সম্মিলিত উদ্যোগ নিতে দেখা যায়নি। এরকম একটা বিষয়কে যারা জানে না, এখানে যাদেরকে সম্পৃক্ত করা হয়েছে প্রায় 100-র উপরে ইউনিভার্সিটিকে, তারা জানেই না হিন্দুত্ব কি, তাদেরকে নিয়ে যে এই ধরনের একটি উদ্যোগ নিয়েছে, সেটা একজন হিন্দু হিসেবে আমরা এটা স্ট্রংলি কন্ডেম করছি, এবং এটা বন্ধ করার জন্য আমেরিকার সরকারের কাছে যথাযথ ব্যবস্থা নেওয়ার জন্য আমরা দাবি জানাচ্ছি। ধন্যবাদ প্রদীপ।
Thank you. We didn't see them organize a conference on Pandits, 30 lakh Pandits in Kashmir, right?
Yes.
And just
exactly.
this Janmashtami, after 32 years, Kashmiri Pandits celebrated Janmashtami. Can you believe in a Hindu country, Hindu people cannot celebrate their religious events, and they don't talk about it? Nikunji, could you please tell me the situation about the Kashmir?
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, exactly. You're right. See, not just Kashmir, but in this year is the 100th anniversary of the Mappila riots in Kerala. Okay, the Mappila riots, and then 50th anniversary of the Bangladesh genocide. Very, very important year, right? 2021. But none of that has been talked about any South Asian departments, any Indology departments. No, this is all South Asian history. Where is South Asian history? But when you only talk about Bangladesh, they'll only focus on Rohingyas. When you only talk about Kerala, they're talking about how the Hindus are killing Christians or some nonsense, right? And then, for example, if they talk about Kashmir, they're only talking about persecution of Muslims in Kashmir. So there is no narrative for Hindus, right? The space for Hindus is not there. And these are South Asian departments. They always call themselves South Asia. South Asia contains Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, India, Nepal, all of the different countries, Sri Lanka, many different countries, right? Why aren't we talking about those countries? And especially when we are only focused on Hindu atrocities. Only when atrocities are made, perpetrated by Hindus, supposedly atrocities, that's what the main focus is. And that's where the problem comes in. So Kashmiri Pandits, for example, they are considered that, it's really their fault. They were rich people, they were oppressing the poor Muslims, so they were, there was a rebellion. Same thing with Mappila. The Brahmins there were landowners, and therefore, these Muslims rebelled against the Brahmins. So there's this whole idea that, the Hindus are always the oppressor. But problem is, in Bangladesh, that was not the case, right? So there is very hard to put that in the framework. So they don't want to talk about Bangladesh because it's a very inconvenient truth that there is no Brahmins that was oppressing the Muslims. None of that happened. So their narrative that, these Brahmins and these Hindus are oppressing the Muslims, that doesn't fit in Bangladesh. So don't talk about Bangladesh. Even though it's the worst genocide of Hindus in modern history, and it's been documented by US Congress and by Edward Kennedy, don't want to talk about it. So if you're talking 50th anniversary of Bangladesh genocide, why isn't there a conference that is talking about dismantling radicalism, dismantling terrorism, and the impact of terrorism and radicalism on Bangladesh, on America, on other parts of the world. Look at what's going on in Afghanistan right now. Shouldn't that be the conversation? But no, dismantling global Hindutva is the conversation to be had, because apparently we are the most dangerous people in the world. So we need to be dismantled.
I think so often also we see that people are coming to Hindu students and trying to force us to apologize for, some kind of atrocity that they're saying, oh, Hindu people are perpetrating this atrocity. You need to say that you're not associated with them. You need to apologize for this. And why are Hindu students being forced to apologize for things that they have nothing to do with and they don't even know about? This is the concern that I see happening too. These, Hindu students across the world are getting, bearing the brunt of what's going on in terms of, you need to apologize for how Muslim people are treated in India. Like, I've been told that I need to explain myself, and I have nothing to do with what's going on in India. And if there is any type of discrimination, Hindus stand up against all types of discrimination, whether it's against a Muslim person, whether it's against a Jewish person, whether it's against a Hindu person. But I think so often right now, this bullying of Hindu people is common practice. Let's bully the Hindu people because they are a majority in India, and so it's okay to do that. I don't think that's okay. Like what Nikunj was saying, we should just stand up for radicalism, whether it's of any religion. It doesn't have to be like, let's target one religion or the other. I think that's something that we've been noticing a lot of going on in the schools here.
Bangladesh has lost 40 million Hindus, I would say, since 1950, last 70 years. 40 million Hindus. Where else so many population has vanished from?
Yeah.
They don't talk
my own family, on my dad's side, we were forced to leave Bangladesh as well. I mean, at that point it was still India, then later became Pakistan, then Bangladesh, but we were forced to leave our own home. And this trauma is something that I actually didn't know anything about until I was in high school, because we don't talk about it. My family never could speak about the fact that they had to leave. And so it wasn't until I found out when I was in high school and I went to my grandma and I said, Grandma, we've never talked about how we used to live in Dhaka. Can you tell me about that? And she said, yeah, her father used to be a professor in Dhaka University. And because of the violence that was was going on, the rioting going on, as Hindus in Bangladesh, or, at that point, India, we were very afraid for our lives. And so we left all of our home and everything and moved to, West Bengal, what is now West Bengal. But, this kind of trauma is something that we never bring up. And I think that trauma is still going on in Bangladesh, and people aren't talking about it. People aren't talking about it, and instead they're trying to focus very much on, what kind of discrimination are Hindus committing against other people. And, we're trying to make these conferences about dismantling Hindutva, but we don't want to make a conference or talk about the atrocities that are being committed against Hindus in Bangladesh. And I think that is really a shame. And I've noticed that in, some of the social media posts that we've seen online, just the fact that, Hindus exist in Bangladesh is just completely ignored. They might talk about, oh yeah, during Operation Searchlight, I saw a post that said during Operation Searchlight, a lot of Bangladeshis were murdered and some temples were destroyed, but they don't want to ever talk about how Hindus were also targeted, very specifically. I mean, in addition to the Bangladeshi freedom fighters, Hindus were also very much targeted, but those kinds of facts people try to ignore that.
And just to add to that, official testimony by Senator Edward Kennedy, this is records in the Congress, the US Congress. He very clearly says that Hindus were targeted for who they are as a religion, and their women were targeted, they were raped systematically. All of that testimony is official. So it's not some Hindutva guy making up this, sort of like mythology that Hindus are being persecuted. It's actually a US senator who actually observed this thing, and he has the report. So it's very, very important that we keep talking. We have to talk about this.
Okay. What I want to say is, if Hindus are so dangerous, and the other community, like in Southeast Asia, there's basically Hindus and Muslims are two majority, predominant communities. If Hindus are so dangerous, why Muslims are thriving everywhere, including India, and the Afghanistan could not sustain its Hindu and Buddhist population. Pakistan could not sustain its Hindu population. Bangladesh is not sustaining its Hindu population, whereas the Islamist, Muslims are, growing everywhere. So shouldn't they focus actually to the truth that who are really dangerous and who are committing these atrocities and who are the factor of banishing this Hindu population from these countries?
Yeah, and it's really important for us to understand that there are Muslims who don't have a problem with Hindus, right? So not all Muslims are like that. I would be very cautious to say that, because we have people, if you look at India, right? KK Muhammad was the guy who talked about Ayodhya, right? He's a Muslim. So you just showed example of Tariq Fateh on your so we cannot say all Muslims are bad, or but there is a radical element that needs to be demolished, that needs to be dismantled, right? We need to dismantle the radical element so that it doesn't become danger to those who disagree or those who are not the same as them, right? So that's where you have Taliban, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, different people in Bangladesh, different forces, right? Those need to be talked about, and those need to be dismantled by the efforts of the global community, whether the Muslims or Hindus or Christians, Jews, you pick, doesn't matter. All of us need to come together and say, where is the real threat of radicalism? And let's eliminate that. What these people are trying to do is whitewash that radicalism and say that Hindu radicalism, if there is such a thing, is the most dangerous thing in the world, right? It is more dangerous than ISIS, Al-Qaeda, etc. So this is the type of narrative that they're trying to portray and whitewash by saying that, okay, let us do this conference on 9/11 and show that global Hindutva is as dangerous or even more dangerous than these other radical and terrorist groups.
Riponda, you want
yes,
to
add
something?
Yes, I want to add, and I would like to participate in this conversation because they use terms global Hindutva. If they used to this term is Indian Hindutva, then I was not part of this conversation, because I belong to Hindutva. And in Bangladesh, after liberation and before liberation, what is Pradip mentioned, that millions of people were disappeared. And our prominent professor of Dhaka University, in his book, Dr. Abul Barakat, he wrote in his book that every day 625 Hindus missing from Bangladesh till now, every day. So if our administration or our government makes sure the security and justice for Hindus, then such kind of things never happened here. And American ex-Senator Tulsi Gabbard has given statement some couple of months before regarding the persecution of Bangladeshi Hindus. And several times in Congresswoman. Yes, sorry, ex-Congresswoman.
She's no more
Congresswoman. Yes. So and this kind of matters is very much clear, and establishment that in Bangladeshi minorities are being persecuted by the majority, and state here responsible, and state are not protecting them. If you see the scenario of Pakistan, we worked on Rinkel Kumari's justice on 2012. Maybe Pradip they were also at that time. The minor girls are kidnapped in the daylight, and their justice are given them to the terrorists, and no justice for Hindus in the Pakistan. And what is happening in Afghanistan, everybody knows that. So we just want to say those who are organizing dismantling global Hindutva, they are basically Naxalist and communist whose root in India, this land. But they never raised their voice against the persecution of Hindus in Bangladesh, persecution of Hindus in Pakistan, persecution of Hindus in Afghanistan, even though persecution of Uyghur Muslims. That means they have never raised their voice in favor of humanity. And I think this is one kind of terrorism what is they are spreading now from America. And we said that we strongly condemn such kind of activities of them. Pradip, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Sohini, you'd like to say something, because we're not gonna carry on. Maybe we're gonna finish it in 5 minutes. So Ms. Sohini, and then
Sure.
Trivedi ji.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much again for having us here today. I think, one kind of closing thought I would have for all of the, Hindu young people out there is, really do try to learn as much as you can. Try to read as many books as you can. Try to learn as many different perspectives as possible. But one thing I will definitely caution all of us on is when we're reading different social media posts or news articles, really try to do your due diligence in learning about who the writer is, who are the editors, did they choose the right picture, are they twisting the facts, is there some bias that is inherent in this article? Because I think so often we've been seeing a lot of newspapers, magazines, journal articles that are labeled South Asian, South Asian journal articles, or we see a Hindu what appears to be a Hindu organization, but is actually, when you look at the board of directors for that Hindu organization, you see that it's, backed by communist groups or by non-Hindu groups. Look at professors that are teaching about Hindu Dharma. See, are they Hindu themselves? Are they, where did they learn about Hindu Dharma? Really do a lot of digging into that, because I think so often we see, Hindu young people and even non-Hindu young people getting very biased by the media that is coming out, by the social media posts that are coming out. So I would say, really try to do your own research into that bias and try to stay informed. And then once you start learning, try to teach the other students other young people about recognizing bias, recognizing, that term that we use in the States a lot of fake news. Try to recognize when those things are happening. Like just recently, this South Asian, media, social media kind of group, they posted this thing that said, happy Raksha Bandhan. And it looked like a nice little cartoon picture, and it seemed like it must be very nice. When you read the description, though, of what it says Raksha Bandhan, it says, oh, this is a very patriarchal holiday that, used to be religious, but is now very secularly, celebrated. It just celebrates friendship. And it had all sorts of little misinformations kind of thrown in there. So then you see Hindus that, don't know any better, some young Hindus that say, oh yeah, Raksha Bandhan is patriarchal, don't you know? But they don't understand that South Asian news magazine is very biased and is trying to push in these subtle digs onto Hindu Dharma in these very small ways, right? Wishing you were happy Raksha Bandhan and telling you that this is patriarchal, which is not. It's actually the celebration of sibling love between, a brother and a sister, where the brother and the sister both promise to protect one another. That's what it is. There's nothing patriarchal about it. And when we look at other religions, though, they might have the same practice that we have, such as, we have Kanyadan, right, in Hindu Dharma. That is seen as being so backwards and horrific. Yet in, other ceremonies, when we have, the father gives away the bride.
Yeah,
right?
Give
away the bride. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. The father is giving away the bride. Kanyadan, giving, it's the same practice of giving the bride to another family. Yet one is considered patriarchal and another one girls dream about from a young age, and they're so excited when their father walks them down and hands them over. So we need to recognize those biases that are happening in our own minds, that are kind of ingrained into us, and they're ingrained in the magazines we're reading, the way we're taught in schools, what our friends are telling us. So I would say really try to be critical when you're reading any newspaper article, and be willing to say, you know what, this is not okay. Let me write a letter to the editor. Let me mobilize and do something. It's very easy to just kind of be a social media warrior, but getting up, participating in organizations like the Coalition of Hindus in North America, like Hindu Students Council, joining an advocacy group is really important, and kind of doing that and just being really informed. So that will be my parting thought to leave with you all and all the young people, even all the older people. Just please, recognize those biases when they are being thrown out at you.
Thank you.
And do something about it.
Sohini. I would like to add to this that I read yesterday somewhere that in West Bengal there is a book where it says that Sri Ramchandra is a foreigner. They came and they settled or whatever, did whatever in North India. So actually they are not, native son. They are foreigners. This is how they are portraying our legends, gods and goddesses. So in the end, I would ask Trivedi that, they are saying, they are equating Hindutva as something like a supremacist group, like US, like a supremacist, white supremacist in America. Do we say that, okay, like I know that Hindus embrace everybody. India is the land where they welcomed everybody, even the persecuted Jews, that, they gave shelter to those persecuted people. And when they say that Hindus are, supremacy philosophy, Hinduism is a supremacy philosophy and Hindus are supremacists. What do you say about that?
Well, they're blatantly lying because the data doesn't show that. The data is very, very favorable in what we have done. If you look at 7,000 years of history or 5,000 years of history, however you want to say, you cannot just look at isolated incidents. Are there issues in every society? Yes. But Hindus in general have been a community that has welcomed everyone. That even today, we're welcoming Sikhs who have been thrown out of Afghanistan, Hindus that have been thrown out of Afghanistan, Muslims that have been thrown out of Bangladesh, many places, right? We're welcoming them. But that is not being talked about. And whose fault is that? The fault is our communities, because only now we are starting to wake up. And I'm actually thankful to the conference, because that has actually given a lot of Hindus some idea that there is something wrong here. There are people that are waking up. So now it's time for us to wake up, take the matters in our own hands. Everyone can accuse you of anything. That doesn't mean you have to accept it. People can say you are this, you are that, you are a killer, you're this, anything. They keep saying your gods are rapists. Ram is a foreigner who came to do this. Ram is a misogynistic pig. All these things are put together, right? By the Western world, by others. That doesn't mean we have to accept it. We have the right to define who we are. And we have the right to take the narrative in our own hands, because other people are not going to. If you give it to somebody else, they're not necessarily going to say nice things about you. They have a different agenda. They have a different idea of dismantling Hinduism. And therefore, it is our kshatriyata that we need to bring back and fight back with our knowledge, with our voice, with our pen, and with our votes. Because ultimately, that's what matters. And that's what we are trying to do in America and in Canada and globally. It's also important that we only don't think about India. Even though India is the birthplace or the motherland in that sense for Hindus, we have Hindus all over. 100 plus countries is where Hindus exist. We don't talk about India only. We have to talk about those 100 countries. Like, what about the white Hindus? They're not Indian. They're not Bangladeshi. Yeah. They are white Americans, and they love Hindu Dharma. Yeah. So they are, Dr. David Frawley, Jeffrey Armstrong, many of these people have spent their lives as Hindus, right? So we need to ally with them. We need to help them become part of the, together, and have a united front to confront this challenge that Hindu Dharma is facing today.
Okay, so all right. With that, we want to conclude our discussion today. Thank you.
Namaskar.
Okay, Riponda, you want to add something, please?
Just I want to take 30 seconds only. Basically, this part. who belongs Hinduism, anybody, he believe in this sloka of our Shastra, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And we are used to say that Sarvesham Shastir Bhavatu, Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu. We want peace all over the lives, all over the each insect or people, not only the people, human beings, every lives of the earth, every creation of the God. So we just want to say that whenever somebody peaceful to us, we are peaceful. And whenever somebody hostile to us, we become Kshatriya. And Trivedi ji and his organization and the Student Alliance and other Hindu organization in America already been made and strong impact on their seminar, and already they are little bit step back from their issues. I think in the end of the day, Hindutva will be win. Thank you.
Well, this was a good, as Trivedi ji said, that it shed a lot of light and awakened the Hindus that this is something is wrong there. So this is a good in a way, and thank you Cohna, the Coalition of Hindus of North America, and Hindu Students Council. They are doing excellent job, and we hope all the viewers that are listening will do the same. And thank you Trivedi ji for coming. Thank you Sohini ji for coming here, and thanks Ripon as always. So সবাইকে নমস্কার। আজকের জন্য এই অনুষ্ঠানটি এখানেই শেষ করছি। ভালো থাকবেন সবাই। থ্যাংক ইউ।